in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, a proposed new law will allow the government to override environmental concerns when approving big development projects.
If a competent authority sets out these conditions, for example, the Environment Department says, actually this project cannot go ahead for this and this and this reason, the minister or the head, they can say, we don't like your decision, we ask you to reconsider it, and then they prepare a report and they put it to the ministerial cabinet to be discussed and approved or rejected as suggestion.
Care of the elderly in Cyprus has many shortcomings, with an NGO reporting neglect and even abuse.
You need to check not only if the building is okay, but if they have good practices, if they have entertainment programs, or if the older people just sit watching TV all day.
And young people can sign up to become youth champions for environment and peace.
This is really an opportunity for 18 to 30-year-olds who are interested in making a change for the environment, but also in linking up with international activists and organizations who are working for climate change.
Environmental groups in Cyprus are calling for the urgent withdrawal of a proposed investment facilitation bill because it's got all sorts of things in there that will make it much easier for ministers, the cabinet, the government in general, to undermine possible environmental protection things. Joining us from BirdLife Cyprus is their campaign's coordinator, Tassos Shalis. Tassos, here we go again with laws proposed which will actually surely mean that we have very little say over what whoever is in government decides should be done in terms of facilitating especially big proposals for new developments.
Yes, exactly that, Rosie. This is, I would call it a bit of a nightmare law proposal if it goes through, because as you highlighted, it will be undermining all sorts of procedures that nowadays take their time to be properly done. It's a fast-track bill, essentially to facilitate for strategic investments, whatever that means.
I was going to ask you, what does that mean?
Firstly, the criteria that are proposed and mentioned in this bill are quite vague, but essentially a strategic investment would be anything that briefly it mentions creates jobs or has a sizable investment, but it's not very clear. And in theory, in the bill, it says that specific regulations will also be drawn to say what a strategic investment is. But essentially, we're talking about golf courses, marinas, large theme parks, and all these proposals that we've been seeing being proposed. And mainly, we're talking about private investment, large projects that the bill would be facilitating to approve. It should be mentioned that this bill has been drawn with a lack of proper consultation with all stakeholders. The relevant competent authority, the Urban Planning Authority, is the one that has put on the table, but it has actually only consulted with relevant business entities and no one else. So essentially what we are having in front of us is a bill to how make things faster for the approval of large projects. So lack of proper consultation is one issue. The other thing is everything needs to be done in such a tight deadline that from the moment that the project is declared strategic investment, within a year, the investor will need to have those permits in their hands, ready to start building. You can imagine the pressure that is going to fall on the government departments, and especially the environment department, which is responsible for the environmental assessment procedure, the pressure it will have to approve it. Essentially, to us, it will be undermining the already existing quality of proper assessment and it will be another pressure to approve it. And the other bad provision in this is that if any conditions are not are considered excessive or irrelevant or unnecessary by the minister, the relevant Minister of Interior, or from this newly created head of strategic investments, if those they are considering any conditions set by the Environment Department as irrelevant, they can ask the competent authority, in this case the Environment Department, to revise them.
Let me interrupt you there just for a minute, because first of all, let me say that we expect the Environment Department to carry out a full assessment procedure on the impact of any proposed development, and I think that's according to EU law, is it not? How long does it normally take them? Because we must admit that government offices in Cyprus tend to be a little on the slow side. How long should it take them to make that assessment?
There is no fixed time of how long it should take. What we are faced with usually, and the argument of the big investors in Cyprus, or any investor, they are arguing that essentially procedures take too long, especially environmental procedures, because they are always asking us for added field work or added information, and this bill will accommodate for a fast-track process. What we are saying actually is that, first of all, the quality of the reports is badly. So if they were doing proper quality environmental reports, before they brought them on the table to be assessed by the relevant Environment Department and the relevant committees, then there wouldn't be such a delay, and there wouldn't be the competent authorities or the members of this committee asking for additional information. Because usually in practice, they bring a report, it's of such low quality that all the relevant departments are asking for additional information, and that can cause delays in the actual approval. But it's not because of the procedure itself there is a problem with it. It's because of the lack of the quality of the report that is put on the table for discussion. But it could take a few years before this is resolved and the Environment Department has a full picture before it can give its position of approval or rejecting a project.
Why isn't the Environment Department tasked with carrying out that initial assessment? Then you would shortcut all these useless assessments that are put in by developers to obviously further their proposals, and we could just have the Environment Department's assessment, and then that can be discussed if need be.
That's a good idea, and already in the existing process, there is a pre-screening. In theory, before they bring a report to be assessed, the Environment Department does a pre-screening and tells whoever has prepared it, you need to improve this and this in your report. But if, for example, for a development, they haven't done a bird service for breeding birds, if they have missed the spring and now it's autumn time, it means they would have to wait for the next spring when we have a breeding period for them to carry it out. It's things like this that if they haven't done them properly, it causes delays and it makes them wait for the next season to do that. But there is a screening process. But again, after the Environment Department does the screening, it's many times again we are met with low quality reports, even though they've been asked by the Environment Department to improve it or submit more information before it's brought to the table to the Environment Assessment Committee to look at it.
Now, from what I've read, and do correct me if I'm wrong, the whole thing about this law is that, in effect, the Minister of the Interior and or the Cabinet and or the head of this Strategic Development Department at Urban Planning and Housing can pretty well say, we don't like this, we don't like that, we overrule this and that, and then we give the go-ahead. Is that right?
Pretty much, yes. If a competent authority sets out these conditions, for example, the Environment Department says, actually this project cannot go ahead for this and this and this reason, the minister or the head, they can say, we don't like your decision, we ask you to reconsider it, and then they prepare a report and they put it to the ministerial cabinet to be discussed and approved or rejected that suggestion.
And what happens if the Environment Department does as it's told and goes back and does another report and comes to the same conclusion?
in theory, with this bill, you would be able to override that, because it would be the ultimate say of the ministerial cabinet to decide in the end, okay, we have the overall last say on the investment that has been rejected, let's say correctly, by the Environment Department. So yes, basically, we are going back to a discussion of almost 5 years ago, when still the urban planning laws were of a higher priority than the environmental assessment laws. And that has been corrected. Up until a few years ago, the urban planning laws were above, and that has been corrected in our transposition of EU directives. This would overturn again that discussion we were having 5 years ago, where the urban planning department was coming back to the environment department and saying, no, we have the last say in anything, including the environmental assessment, which is not. It's the other way around. If an environmental assessment says no to a project, then it cannot proceed. And that's what the EU directives also say.
Now, I think, if I'm right, that the other thing that's being, if you like, sidelined or binned is this access of the public through the Aarhus Convention, which is particularly important and has before, especially with the Agamas plan, been kept hidden by the Interior Ministry. What is happening now about consulting citizens and giving them the actual plans so they can comment?
Already we have these procedures, and sometimes it's difficult for the public to be aware of when things are published so they're able to comment. With this bill, it will become almost impossible for the public to contribute a say into any project that they might be interested in. Because the deadlines will be so tight that the relevant department, let's say in the bill it says the urban planning department or the environment department may decide on which stakeholders to call in to get their advice. So that means already you can select who to call in and advise, and obviously the general public is not given the opportunity to comment to any citizens.
We're not given that opportunity now, because I approached the Interior Ministry and quoted the Aarhus Convention about the Agamas plan, and they told me very clearly that it was confidential until it was agreed.
Also that, yes, of course. With this example that you just mentioned, for sure we are in breach of the Aarhus Convention. But if this bill goes through, it essentially means there would be no possibility for anyone to access from the general public, because they would have a very short time, and who will tell them, okay, it's published now, go here and provide your comments if you are invited either by the urban planning or the environment department to give your say.
Have you managed to talk to any of the people on the relevant House committee to see their thoughts and what's happening? Is this going to go through?
It's still early stages. I mean, we were not really invited to the Interior Committee of the Parliament that is discussing this. We sent a position letter last week when it was the second meeting taking place. And our next step is to have a more in-depth discussion about where this is heading. What we are saying is actually that this law proposal should be withdrawn. This discussion should stop, because basically it's trying to meet the developers' demands, which says that in Cyprus we need more development and we need to have a fast-track process for big projects to be approved. We have excessive development and it needs to be managed and controlled further. So it's a matter of how are people perceiving this, and our position is clear. We don't need more development. We need to keep our procedures and manage the existing development and control it further.
Well, in every area of Cyprus, we don't actually need to break ground on new, untouched land. In every city, there are huge old buildings and areas that have already been built on and could be repurposed if need be. But it does strike me, Tassos, that this whole thing seems to be, now we've got rid of the golden passports, how do we keep all these mega millionaires around in Cyprus if we can't let them make a lot of money even if it destroys our environment? And of course the developers will be having their cut on that as well.
Yes. It also looks to me that we are looking for the next escape of possible a big development push since the Golden Passport ship has sailed. And already we're seeing a lot of these projects that are on, or kind of on the list of what would be a big strategic development. We already have bad examples that they have been developed in protected areas. And all these big projects, most of them, they would be placed in Natura 2000 areas if they are approved, which are the only areas at the moment that hardly there is a bit of development happening, and we are trying to limit the development. Imagine if this bill goes through, that we will be losing even those last remaining Agamas, for example. That's your perfect example, fast track process for big developments in Agamas. This would be opening the door to any kind of bad developments developing in protected areas.
And as we said, it is all about the big developments, because I think the smaller ones, which would be more likely to be proposed by Cypriot developers or small consortia, they're going to go through the usual thing. This is just a facilitation bill for the mega millions, isn't it? I hope you manage to succeed to persuade the people in Parliament that this is going to be an appalling outcome for everyone in Cyprus. Keep us informed, will you, Tassos?
I will, and we'll definitely make a noise if we see this bill progressing through the discussions.
Quite frightening. So that is Tassos Shalis, the campaigns manager for BirdLife Cyprus, telling us there about this proposed investment facilitation bill. Money, money, money. It's what it's all about.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
We're going to talk now about care for the elderly in Cyprus, because plans have been in place for several years to improve the conditions in which many of our old people live, but nothing seems to have come of it. We're joined this week by Dimos Antoniou, who is president of the Cyprus Third Age Observatory. Dimos, first, can you tell us a little bit about what the observatory does?
The observatory is a non-profit, non-governmental organization which was founded in 2015, actually to safeguard the human rights of the elderly people in Cyprus. So what we do, actually, we develop and implement policies and good practices. We try to develop them anyway in Cyprus for a better quality of life of the elderly. We fight ageism, abuse, neglect, and abandonment. We're trying to educate the society that getting older is the natural course of life and not actually a disease. And we promote active, healthy, and dignified aging, among a million other things.
Now, recently there's been coverage in the press about the fact that I think it's the observatory that has said that there is a lot of negligence. Can we talk about what most old people in Cyprus face? I mean, if we look back not so very long ago, we lived in extended families and the younger members of the family took care of the elderly, and it seems that that is not as it used to be anymore.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and we have many cases of abandoned old people in their houses by their children, and they are so focused on their daily lives that they forget that they have parents or grandparents or older people that need their help. So what we have seen so far since 2015, and especially during the COVID period, 2 years now, a lot of people, they are, let's say, withdrawn into their loneliness at home. And a lot of people are at the age of psychological collapse because of that. We have, let's say, social isolation. Most of these cases turn into abuse by their helpers or children at home. So it's a situation that we don't really like, and it's not an honor for the society in Cyprus, which you rightly said, it was a society that was taking care of the older people. They care about them, but in most cases, this is not valid anymore.
Now, if we look at the people who actually do end up in care homes, first of all, I don't think we have very many of those in Cyprus, but there has also been evidence that they're not regularly inspected and checked for the standard of care that they are giving. Who's responsible for doing that?
It's the Social Welfare Service. We have around 105 nursery homes in Cyprus. They are checked, but it's not a quality check. Okay, we can say that these welfare people go to the nursery, they check the building, if let's say the carers there are certified or they know what they're doing, and that's it. We have taken an entirely different approach. We are saying that, you need to introduce to these teams people from, let's say, psychologists to review or to check the mental health of the older people living there. You need to check not only if the building is okay, but if they have good practices, if they have entertainment programs, or if the older people just sit watching TV all day, doing nothing, or how active they are. Because we have elderly people that they go to the nursery homes because they cannot help themselves at home or nobody cares. So they go there for someone to take care of them, but it doesn't mean that they are useless. They have a life in them. And what we do in Limassol, because our offices are in Limassol and 3 to 4 times a week, we have groups of people coming in, especially in the afternoons, and we have cognitive enhancement exercises. We do music therapy, dance therapy. We do gymnastics and special exercises for the elderly. So we keep them active, we keep them healthy, and they do socialize.
We know from best practice in other countries, I mean, you get teams of people going with dogs or cats so that the elderly people can have a cuddle or whatever. Do we do that here?
I know as far as I'm aware of, but what we do, we have volunteers that go to elderly people that they are alone and they need the human interaction, and we give psychological support, and we do cognitive enhancement at home as well. We are trying to expand the observatory in the other cities as well for people to enjoy these programs, and also to set up mobile units to go in the villages, in other areas that are, let's say, a bit isolated. But I think we need to see what other countries are doing. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. And this is a thing that I have been saying for many years now, that we need to have a national strategy for the third age. Fortunately, this year, the Ministry of Health and the Deputy Ministry of Social Welfare understood that the population of Cyprus is aging fast. I mean, by 2030, I think the people over 65 will be the 1/3 of the population in Cyprus. And imagine the pressure on the healthcare system and the society in general. So they decided that we need to have a national strategy on the third age, which I think it will be implemented in 2023, which is a very good step forward.
Well, okay, but if we look back, it's several years now, 4 is it, or 5, that the idea of a red button was approved by the cabinet and it still hasn't been implemented. And am I right in thinking that's the thing that you see all over Europe, that elderly people living on their own have a bracelet or a necklace that if they have a fall or something and they need emergency help, they just press the button and it goes straight to a command centre and help is sent immediately?
This is what we have introduced to the late Zeta Milianidou back in 2018. Ourselves have been trained in the red button of Greece, which is they're doing a tremendous job. So we have introduced that to the government, and Zeta Milianidou got the approval from the cabinet for the observatory to implement this huge project. Unfortunately, it stayed in the drawers, and speaking with the Deputy Minister, Ampusi, the other day, she told me that there are last stage of setting up the specifications for this line, etc., etc. So it's been sitting there for 3 whole years, doing nothing actually, and we hope that in 2023 we will implement this project, which it will save lives, and it will, let's say, not eliminate, but it will help people at home to feel more secure, less loneliness, and all the other things that come together. So I hope by 2023 we will have the good news and announce it.
Well, do let us know if that comes to pass, because it's really rather worrying to think of the number of old people who are either having not very good care in some of our care homes or are sitting home alone with a possible visit from somebody to clean the house and shower them a couple of times a week. Shameful. Demos, pleasure talking to you. Keep us informed about how the care improves for the old people of Cyprus, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for your interest. Thank you.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
You've got just 2 days to become a United Nations Youth Champion for Environment and Peace. That's because the deadline for signing up for a project called Let's Build a Greener Future is this coming Sunday. To tell us all about it, it's a warm welcome to Marina Vasilara. Marina, fill us in. What is Let's Build a Greener Future?
This is really an opportunity for 18 to 30-year-olds who are interested in making a change for the environment on the island, but also in linking up with international activists, local and international activists, and organizations who are working for climate justice, for climate change. The program will be run over 2 weekends. That will be the weekend of November 26th, 27th, and the weekend of December 3rd and 4th. Some of the sessions will be online, most of them in person. It will take place in the buffer zone in the area of Leader Palace. And we're doing this in partnership with the British Council for the 3rd year in a row now. And the goal is to select about 25 young people who are going to run through these 2 weekends and become UN Youth Champions for Environment and Peace. The program is part of a bigger portfolio of environmental peace building that UNFICYP and the UN in Cyprus is trying to build on. And that is to say that we're trying to get young people to collaborate on environmental issues, to discuss, to find ways of collaborating together and making their voices heard. That's very important. Finding ways to make your voices heard is really key, as well as partnerships, of course, and collaboration across the divide.
So what will they be doing on these 2 weekends?
Okay, it's a packed program. We have, for example, a simulation game that we are doing together with Climate Interactive. Climate Interactive is an international NGO affiliated to MIT that runs the simulation game where the young people will be put in teams and they will be running different climate simulations. So as how, what types of decisions do we take now as different stakeholders? They will be divided into different stakeholder groups. And then how these decisions affect the future in terms of, climate change and a number of other factors. That's only one example of what we'll be working on. There will be a lot of debates with activists from all around the world on what they are doing in their countries, how they are trying to bring forth change, what are they trying to impact. We have sessions with the United Nations Environment Program that are going to talk to us about what they're doing worldwide on environmental peace building. We will have also representatives of the Geneva Peace Building Platform, which is a platform of organizations and NGOs based in Geneva working on peace building, and environmental peace building is part of their portfolio. And a lot of other sessions, a lot of collaboration, a lot of group work as well as sort of listening in to seminars and being able to interact with different experts from around the world. Okay,
where can anybody who'd like to sign up, because they've got to do their homework pretty quickly, where can they find out what's on the agenda and sign up?
The agenda of the 2 weekends will be shared with the participants that are selected. The application form is found on the UNFICYP website as well as on social media. people can contact me as well. My telephone number is 993670005. They can also email me if they wish to at unfisip, _youthchampions@un.org.
The easiest thing is probably for them to look for facebook.com/unfisip, and it'll come up there with a link I see here to the form to fill in. I hope it's successful, Marina. Many thanks for telling us all about it.
Thank you, Rosie, and I look forward to receiving applications.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.